great. Our people out here struggling, trying to make it in this state. Everybody out here doing it, but we the ones who late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money and the power, never be fake. Stick to code, side for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same empire back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr. Boy's TV.
TV.com. This is the home for intelligent Black people. And I want to say hello to everybody. And this is Powernomics Thursday. And this is the day where we get to talk about Powernomics and strategies for the community and solutions, most importantly, solutions that are going to make us better long term. And the person I get the privilege of speaking with on Powernomics Thursday is the one and only Dr. Claud Anderson. He is one of the most distinguished Black scholars and thinkers in this country, in this world. And he is the author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Black History Reader, and Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2. And so without further ado, I'd like to welcome my friend, Dr. Anderson. How you doing today, sir?
Oh, I'm doing a little better. Inching forward, trying to get on solid health grounds, and so I can get back with my people.
All right. And so everybody who's watching online, please give Dr. Anderson a digital hello. Let him know that you appreciate him. And I also want to remind everybody, don't forget that we have Black Movie Night tonight at 8 p.m. where we're going to support Black filmmakers and Black-owned movies to build a Black-owned industry and to take over the entertainment industry for Black folks. So if you want to register for tonight, go to blackmovienight.net. That's blackmovienight.net. Make sure you get there early because last time we filled up to capacity within about 3 to 5 minutes. And this time we got a bigger room. Last time we could only hold 1,000 people in the Zoom room, Dr. Anderson. So we filled up in about 3 minutes. So this time we expanded to 3,000. So the first 3,000 people will get in. Everybody else will try to get you in next time. And so anyway, Dr. Anderson, let me ask you this. Have you at all been following a lot of this public discussion right now about what's going on, with viruses and politics and everything else? Have you seen much of that on the news?
Yeah, I watched a little bit of it, but most of that's theatrics. That's a show, and it has nothing to do with the reality of what's going on in the country. And in terms of Black people, they started talking about Black folk being disadvantaged or being with a significant amount of deaths occurring in the Black communities. That's true. But the fact of the matter is that once they mention that, they're going to go on forever, never come back to it. They're never going to propose any solutions for it. Because what I've told Black folk repeatedly for 60 years is that Black people are outside and underneath the social economic structure in this country. And what the white folk have been doing and practicing for, I guess, since the end of slavery, what I call economic nationalism. You know what economic nationalism is, don't you?
No, well, I mean, I know what nationalism is, and I think I know, but I like to. What's your interpretation of economic nationalism?
Well, see, the whole point of slavery was an economic issue. It was a social issue. It never had anything to do with social aspects of anything. It was strictly economics. They're going to use Black folk to practice capitalism. Capitalism means owning, controlling the land, the tools, the resources, and use someone else's labor to generate wealth and power for yourself. That was the whole point of slavery. That's created capitalism. And when slavery ended in 1859, in 1859, that's when racism began, because that time whites had gotten control of 100% of all the land, the tools, the resources, the businesses, income, the privileges, the rights, and every controls of all levels of government. It was over. And Black folk were outside. White folks by then were 99-foot giants and Blacks were 1-foot midgets. It hasn't changed. And so slavery was started out as an economic issue. And so racism meant, since Black folk are 1-foot midgets and white folk are 99-foot giants, racism means the race is over. The race was between European nations that were competing to see who can get own and control most of Blacks, get a hold of the land, and then get free Black labor and enrich themselves off of it. That was it. But by 1859, at that time, the imbalance had been created. Whites were up here and Blacks were down there. And so racism means take the E off of race. The contest for land in the West between the British, French, Germans, Norwegians, Italians, all that, the race was over. The contest for who can get the most land and get the most wealth and power, the contest was over. That's why Spanish, for instance, they've taken over most of the land south of the United States, Mexico, Latin America. That's what they call that New Spain. They were trying to develop a new Spain to enrich themselves. When the contest was over, they then said, take that E off of race. And what they did conceptually was they took the E off of race and put ISM on it. ISM is a suffix, meaning maintain the prevailing conditions between the factions. Whites are 99-foot giants, blacks are 1-foot midgets. Let it stay like that. Anybody who tries to change it is trying to alter racism. And so at that point, it became whites, because at that time, everybody was coming to this country was basically whites, based on the 1790 immigration law. All immigrants were basically whites coming into the country. That means, and that's ethnic, that was ethnicity and nationalism. And most of those people wound up inheriting and moving into the South. And so the whole Southern bloc that you were talking about in a few seconds ago, whole Southern bloc was Confederates. They got all this land down there free. And then they had black labor, they had those blacks captured. And at that point in time, they wanted to maintain that power and resources. That was, when they did that, it was based on whites. White this, white that. It stayed white. Originally it was Europeans. They called themselves Europeans up until about the 1840s, and they switched from being Europeans. They started calling themselves whites. And so why? Because increasingly they wanted to get blacks out of the country and bring in more ethnic groups. Started talking about, well, it's 1859 and slavery is over now. About 1859, let's get rid of these black folk. Let's send them back to Liberia, or let's send them to Mexico, or let's send them to the Bahamas. Let's find some place on the earth we can send blacks to, and so that whites could practice economic nationalism without black folk being involved. And so that was the whole point, is back to Africa movement. That wasn't triggered by black folk, it was triggered by whites. Because whites were sick and tired of black folk. They didn't need them anymore. And contrary to what black folk think, the North also despised black folk. Nobody wanted black folks. By the time the Civil War started, right before it, they were sick and tired of black folk. They didn't need black folk anymore. Mm. And so they started talking about, Lincoln came in, Lincoln was just picking up what white folks were talking about. Let's get rid of black folk. And he wasn't black folks' friend. He just said, well, I'll create a special area down around Mexico and Texas where we can ship all the blacks slaves. Let's free the slaves and put them down there. Or let's send them to the Bahamas. Let's send them back to Africa. Let's send them to Liberia. And so black folk were always outside the system, while white folks want to practice economic nationalism. And that's what the issue is right now. All this surplus money they're going to put into try to deal with this with the virus, most of that money is going to go to whites. It's when you hear them talk about putting in $2 trillion of wealth. It's not going to go to black folk. It's going to go to major white corporations, first of all. And when they talk about small businesses, they're not talking about blacks. You're going to cut that small business pie open. You'll find probably no blacks going to be in that thing. No black business is going to be in that. It's going to be all white businesses, period. But they use these very broad, ambiguous terms so they can practice economic nationalism. Now go on with your next question.
Everybody who's watching, I'm speaking with Dr. Claud Anderson. He's the author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Black History Reader, and Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2. His website, please type the website in the chat. If you love Dr. Anderson the way I do, type powernomics.com into the chat. Everybody should have Powernomics books in their household. And so let me ask you about this, Dr. Anderson. So, one thing that you mentioned, I want to drill into that point. You mentioned that a lot of this, conversation, these trillions of dollars that are being pumped into the economy, the money went out there. And one of the biggest complaints I saw in mainstream media was that a lot of the money went to bigger corporations and missed a lot of small businesses, and there was a lot of concern about inequality and stuff like that. That's sort of this general inequality. But one area where I have not heard anybody talking about in mainstream media. And you guys give me a yes or no if you've heard anybody talk about this. I have not heard about anybody talk about the racial inequality. You know, when we have these candidates, the Joe Bidens and the Bernie Sanders and people like that, they're quick to talk about economic inequality amongst the masses, amongst white folks, but they will never touch the issue of racial economic inequality. Meaning, you know, you put out, you know, trillions of dollars. How much of that money is trickling to black communities and black businesses? But yet they will use that suffering of black people to mobilize black votes by saying, well, there's inequality in the number of people getting sick from this virus. They're talking about that all day. In fact, CNN is having a town hall meeting where I have no doubt in my mind they're going to bring that up. They bring in black entertainers. I think Alicia Keys is the headline, and they're bringing together these people. And I guarantee you they're going to talk about the inequality in the infection rate, but nobody will talk about the inequality when it comes to the infections of poverty, the infections of joblessness, the infections of, the urban decay, the infections of broken, non-existent businesses, the infections of a lack of access to capital. They don't have anything to say about that, but they'll talk all day about the fact, 200 extra black people got sick with the virus, and because that fits their agenda. It's almost as if we are a convenient talking point as long as we're fitting the agenda they have. But when we bring the agenda and talk about the economics, they don't want to hear that. What do you think about that, Dr. Anderson?
Well, you're absolutely right. And so that's been going on throughout history. That was then built into the Constitution, and they still be using it. What they'd like to do is use very broad, ambiguous terms. I'm talking about anything pertaining to race matters, so that therefore black folk, they figure black folk are not smart enough to be able to dissect or to fillet an issue. Fillet a big term to see what's inside it for black folk. See, as a matter of fact, Ronald Reagan said the same thing in 1982 when he took over the White House. We left. I was President Carter. He brought Haldeman into the office and said, "Look, you're going to talk about race matters now that we got control of the White House. Make sure under no circumstance do you say anything straight out negative towards black people." They said, make sure that you bury it, hide it. So use very broad and ambiguous terms like minorities, poor folk, people of color, stuff like this. He said, and the jigs, GI, he said jigs, and because which really meant NIG, NIGs, would never know the difference. They never know what they're not going to be included in part of any solution in this country. And that's a part of the old law. Now, I know earlier on one of your responses that came in from your listeners, they mentioned something about we knew Dr. Anderson was right when he says that there was a gag order in 1836 saying, do not bring up any matters pertaining to black folk. This from the United States Congress put out a gag order saying nobody in Congress and in the White House should be talking about anything pertaining to black folk. That was right before the Civil War. It's called a gag rule. That rule went and stayed in effect from 1836 up to about 1846. Then it went out of effect, right? Because that time you started getting some feedback because people like Uncle Tom Cabin was being written and all this kind of stuff, and the Whig Party was switching over, becoming the Republican Party with Lincoln coming on board and all this kind of stuff. So, but anyway, it reemerged back about 1870 again. Instead of being a gag rule, it was called a code of ethics, a code of conduct, which says that white people after slavery was code of conduct. White folk could not bring up the issue again about race matters in America. It was non-acceptable. Therefore, and they want everybody to stay invisible. Black people are the invisible elephant in the room in any matter talking about social conditions or economic conditions. He's running around, and the black folk are running around the room as an invisible elephant. They are a third rail. People are scared of black folk. They're scared of giving you opportunities, real opportunities in economics, because they're practicing economic nationalism. Under no circumstance they're going to give black folks some rights to get economics. If they get any money, you're not going to black folk. That's what killed the civil rights movement by 1960s. And black folks started saying, yeah, we appreciate some of these social opportunities that you all are discussing, but how about economic opportunities? When they said that, the Jews say, you bring up that economics, we're gonna pull out of the civil rights movement. That's why Jews pulled out of the civil rights movement in the 1960s, because black folks started talking about economic opportunities for black folk. They said, no, you bring that up, we're no longer with you. See, Jews
really? Can you talk about that a little bit more? I'm going to repeat that so everybody can make sure did y'all catch that? Give a yes, a confirmation in the chat that y'all caught that. So you're saying that they backed out, that they weren't interested in the civil rights movement when we wanted to talk about economic rights. Can you speak on that? What was what was going on with that? Like what was their objection? What was the documentation on that? I mean, can you talk a little bit about that?
The next migration, I told you earlier, migration is a negative for black folk, period. Integration is a negative for black folk, period. The black folk can't figure it out because they're being bamboozled, misled by black civil rights leaders in this country. And they keep going for the okie doke. That's why they never win. It hasn't dawned on most people yet, black folk. They should be asking themselves, why is it after 460 years, you're still on the bottom and outside and underneath the system? It's because there's a systematic effort to keep you outside and underneath. So let's go back, and migration and integration are two of the things that suppress you. Those are suppression techniques by immigration and migration. Those things are suppressing black folk. You start talking about suppression of the black vote. Blacks cannot suppress their own vote. They suppress your vote. Your vote doesn't matter in the first place. That's a rigged game. But your black vote is suppressed by bringing more immigrants in and over and above you, and migration. Okay, so let's go back to the point now you just asked. Question just asked about that began to develop, let's say in about 1914, 1910, back between 1910 and 1915, that point, when they started bringing a lot of Jews into the country. And Jews coming into the country, they figured out that they needed some kind of protection since they just barely survived a lot of mistreatment over in Europe. Okay, so as they came in, they wanted to find opportunities for themselves. They saw black folks. They hear people out here pursuing, trying to get some kind of equal rights and equal opportunities. They said, what we'll do then, let's align with them. But we're aligned, even though we are whites. Jews are whites. Originally, they were called Caesarians. They were Caesarians up to about 900 AD. And then they switched over and started calling themselves Jews. And they took up the Jewish religion. Prior to that, the Jewish religion was a black religion until about 800s and 900s. Then the Jews and King Balan, who was a king up between the Black Sea and the Balkan area, and he was a little concerned about how his people were overly aggressive in economics and business and stuff, and doing some inappropriate behavior and different things in behavior. And he wanted to sort of suppress that. So he invited 6 black rabbis to come up and introduce the Jewish religion to the Caesarians. That was like about 800s and 900s. Then pretty soon the Jews began to dominate the religion and sort of took it over. But let me jump from that. So Jews started pouring into this country then as whites, practicing Judaism. They started pouring into the country about some point in right around time that the World War I was going on, starting gearing up. And as they were coming to this country, they wanted to identify with somebody who would be respectful of their religion, of the Jewish religion, and could give them a little bit of cover. And so what they did then, because at that point in time, NAACP had been started like in about 1909, and Urban League in like in 1911. Those started by Jews. They started those organizations. They wanted blacks to sort of identify, they want to use those organizations to identify with black folks and Jews. And so what the Jews said is that we will help you through the NAACP and through the Urban League. We'll help you get some social opportunities for social elevation if you give us some opportunities in your communities. And say what we want from you would be in return for our support as whites. We'll support you as whites with a different religion than Protestantism and Catholicism, if you in fact would identify and sort of provide some cover for us and identify and support us. And so Jews then said, we'll come in your communities, give us a chance to get after economics in your communities. And so Jews began to start going into the black communities and black neighborhoods across America and setting up businesses. Jews, they set up pawn shops, clothing stores, shoe stores. They got black folk provide the cover. And they had a very close-knit relationship from about 1915 sometime all the way up to about 1965. So for over 50 years, Jews and blacks were very tight, even though Jews were whites at that point. They were whites black folk were identified with anything affecting the Jews. They would support the Jews, and the Jews would try to support blacks in a lot of things in terms of getting social opportunities or political opportunities, even getting a few voting opportunities. But by 1965, 1968, black folks then had gotten a little stronger. They said, well, what about economics? We want to get some economic opportunities. And the Jews said at that point in time, you don't bring that up. We're not going to get into that because right now this country is overladen with economic nationalism. Whites are not going to give you those opportunities, and we as whites, we cannot support that either. And so they began to pull back from black folk. And let me go back 1 second too. Let me go back. Do you mind I go back a second on that? Let me go back to following the Depression, black folk then before the Depression, black folk had about 20 times more businesses than they got today per 100,000 people. And so from the 1920s, late 1920s up to about 1936, black folk lost a lot of businesses like white folks did. And but black folk but what segregation did for black folk, it did something that black folk had never done for themselves at that point in time. It showed them how if you build your own businesses in your own communities and buy from your own people, you can be very productive and successful. We had all kind of black businesses cropping up between that time. Blacks had their own movie theaters. They had all kind of hair raising products. We had mattress factories. We had broom factories. We had bus companies. We had cab companies. We had theaters. We had restaurants. We had nightclubs. Everything was coming up between that period of time. We were very pro-black. But by the late 1930s, all of a sudden, rather than the destruction by depression that killed off a lot of black businesses, and where everybody else started building their businesses, blacks say, well, rather the black leadership, black leaders, civil rights leaders, black newspapers, and black religious people says, look, there's too much blackness now. Let's go for what we call exceptional, go for less broad acceptance into the white society. Let's now try to push social integration. So they start by the 1940s, blacks started pushing social integration. At the same time, Jews have been with them all this time, pushing social integration. And what they said is that if white folk were accept social, give us some more opportunities, social opportunities, we will give up our economic opportunity. We give up our black football teams and black basketball teams. We'll integrate everything. And then when they said that, whites say, look, where we've always had ethnic communities. We've had Irish communities, Italian communities, Polish communities, Greek communities, white, just Protestant communities. They said, if these black folk are going to integrate, try to join us, we must stop practicing ethnicity and become just whites. So instead of having ethnic communities anymore, Italian communities, French communities, Polish communities, Italian communities, Greek communities, what whites say, let's all come together, let's have just one white community. And so they got rid of their ethnic communities and joined together as whites. Now, when blacks started, and by 1960s, when blacks said, well, we need some economics. Whites said, no, as a bloc, we are practicing white ethnicity and economics, nationalism. We cannot let you blacks get in the wealth. And so if you push that, we as Jews will pull away from you. And so, and they did pull away. We had about 4 or 5 blacks who were very good at pushing that. One was Shirley Chisholm was pushing the economic opportunities for black folk with the Jews. And I think either Andy Young, there were a bunch of black leaders, about 4 or 5 major black personnel were pushing this for economics. The Jews said, you keep pushing it, we'll pull away. And so Jews pull out and they said, we'll become conservatives, conservative whites. They create what's called neo-conservative. You heard that term, neo-conservatives? That's where the neo-conservatives came from, those Jews that pull out of the movement to get away from black folk pushing for economics. They pulled away from blacks at that time and became conservatives and left blacks out there by themselves. So Jews, and in the meantime, they left all those businesses in the communities where most of the grocery stores, a lot of other businesses in the community were owned and operated by Jews, furniture stores, all kind of stores, pawn shops, beer and liquor, everything. Jews pulled away from black folk and pulled out of the communities, and now it's just blacks. But those vacancies that were created were soon immediately filled by because the civil rights laws began to bring in, had new civil rights laws for immigration. They started bringing in Arabs, Hispanics, and Asians, and they fill those slots that the Jews gave up in the black community. So now in the black community, Jews are no longer there operating businesses, but now you got Arabs, you got Hispanics, you got Asians in those black communities operating those businesses, what I call rotating minorities. They're rotating. They come in. They use that to build an economic base. They also practice economic nationalism based on their country of origin, as Asians, as Arabs, and as Hispanics. They're practicing economic nationalism in the black community. Everybody has practiced economic nationalism in the black community except black folk. We did it for a short period of time between the early 1900s and up to about late 1930s, about 1936. That's economic nationalism. That's why the Jews are no longer strong in the black communities. Now the black communities are dominated by Arabs, Asian, and Hispanics.
Mm. All right, everybody. Give Dr. Anderson a verbal confirmation to know that you heard what he was saying, because he doesn't have to be out here talking and teaching like this. A lot of people aren't teaching you how to really empower yourself. They're just teaching you how to get mad and how to get into social integration and all the things that have proven to not work for the advancement of black people. Also, hit the thumbs up button, share and subscribe button. I'm speaking with Dr. Claud Anderson. He's the author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Black History Reader, Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2. I actually keep, I'm sure, I don't know if I told you, Dr. Anderson, but I keep all your books right next to me. I pull the books out. Y'all know this. Everybody who watches me every day, you know that all I got to do is I ain't got to reach more than 1.5 feet to pull my Powernomics book. I got my Black Labor, White Wealth, my Black History Reader over here, Dirty Little Secrets. I got all of that because I believe in this. And everybody who hasn't gone to Powernomics.com, just go to Powernomics.com. You can not only get the books for your family, but also you can subscribe to Dr. Anderson's YouTube channel. So make sure you go to Powernomics.com to do that. Also, don't forget that tonight we're doing Black Movie Night. So if you want to register, and it's totally free, we're creating a black film industry. We're going to take over the black film industry, but we can use your help. The more you help us, the more we can do this. So we're going to watch The Melanin Code, which is all about black people being on code and what a code of conduct looks like in terms of preparation for war. So we are preparing black people to win an economic and political war that's going to last for the next 100 years. So The Melanin Code, I was an executive producer on the film, but Marcus Small's the director. Dr. Anderson, you got to see The Melanin Code. It's a very good movie. In fact, actually, I'm going to pull up the trailer, and I'd like for you to watch, because I'd love to hear your take on it. I'm sure the director would too. So let me ask you about this, Dr. Anderson. Speaking to your point, I'll tell you a quick little story. When I was in Atlanta, I was thinking about Atlanta today because Atlanta is a political hot button right now with everything going on with the virus. Now you got the governor, the Republican governor, who's saying we're going to open up the state. You got the mayor, who's a black Democrat, who's saying, we're not going to open up the state. And then you got a lot of black folks commenting. Two guys I respect. One guy's a friend of mine. The other one's my favorite rapper. This guy's by the name of David Banner and T.I. You might have heard of both of them. They were on Instagram today, and they were talking about all of this, and Killer Mike, another rapper, had some things to say. Some politicians have things to say. Some thinkers and scholars have things to say. And here's what all this, when I process all of this and I'm thinking about Atlanta, I think about a time when I was in Atlanta for a speech. And on that morning, my grandmother's buried in Atlanta. I couldn't remember what cemetery she was in. I looked on Google Maps and I found the cemetery, and I found out it was about 6 miles from my hotel. So I talked to my fiance. I said, why don't we do a long run? We're going to run 12 miles, 6 miles out, 6 miles back. And we're going to go and find my grandmother's gravesite. And my grandmother's a lot like, she thinks a lot like you, like she would just love you to death. And I wish y'all could have met, because I loved her. She's the first person that taught me about economics, accountability, personal responsibility, and a lot of the values that black folks lost during integration. Right. So she was born in 1936, so she thinks different, or she did before she passed. So anyway, so I'm running out to see my grandmother's grave for the first time in years, and I'm running through West Atlanta. And as I'm running through West Atlanta, and I'm seeing black folks, they recognize me, they see me, they, hey, Dr. Poison. And then one guy came up and he said, He said, Dr. Boyce, you running through West Atlanta? What you doing over here? And I didn't know what that part of West Atlanta was, I guess, considered a dangerous neighborhood, right? So
Was it because of the Klan, or was it because of the Klan of blacks?
It wasn't. I didn't see no Klan, but I saw a lot of stuff that shows that people been through the struggle over there. So I'm sitting there, and here's what's going through my mind, Dr. Anderson. I'm gonna lay all this out, and we circling back to your point. So I'm running through West Atlanta, and I'm observing my surroundings for our safety, number one, but then number two, because I'm curious. And here's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing abandoned buildings. I'm seeing, apartment complexes where people live in them, but you can't imagine how somebody can live in it because you're like, hey, how can somebody live in that place? The windows are all busted out, but there's people over there, so people live there. I saw grocery stores that were boarded up. I saw groups of black men, just healthy young black men, just sitting around with nothing to do, liquor bottle in their hand, just sitting around talking, doing whatever. I then saw a church that was the most beautiful building on the street. I mean, looked like that church was built in heaven, and it's surrounded by all this poverty and all this misery. And then check this out. So then I'm thinking, I'm trying to figure out, I'm like, okay, the question I'm asking, number one, we got all these black politicians. Where are these black politicians, especially the ones from the Democratic Party? Where are they in the middle of all this? Why are they not fixing this? That's the first question. Number two, I was thinking, how can anybody raise a family and generate income in this kind of surrounding, and all these black men sitting there without jobs or anything? And then I saw a group of white white and Hispanic construction workers that were the only people I saw that looked like they had a job, and they were just in the neighborhood. You could tell they were just there to do their job, make their money, and go home, right? So they're making money off this community. They're pillaging this community. And then check this out, Dr. Anderson. Then when we got thirsty and we stopped at one of the corner stores to buy some a Gatorade. In the corner store, it had all the metal bars and everything up, and it was run by a couple Arabs. Well, that they did not live in that neighborhood. So my point is that I'm seeing all this devastation, and I'm thinking about the fact that the politicians have abandoned them. That the church is the nicest building on the block, that the only people there making money are white folks, and that the corner store is being run by people who are not black. And to me, that trip through Atlanta, and as I think about everything else that's going on politically, and the fact that everybody's talking about stuff that don't amount to nothing, but ain't nobody talking about the real issues, that just really in a nutshell made me think about a lot of the issues that you talk about in terms of everybody getting rich off of black folks and using black folks, but ain't nobody really doing nothing for black folks. Can you speak to that? I don't even have a question. I just wanted to tell you that story.
That's an excellent story. That's a good one too. And yes, everybody, I guess ever since the end of the Civil War, even before that in terms of slavery, everybody used black folk as a whore. They use a pimp and hustle them, and that makes everybody, every ethnic group, every religious group, every racial group, every gender, trigender, anything else, they all use blacks make blacks into whores. And there's an old rule in politics that says that in time there's a heavy load to be moved, the willingness ass will pull the heaviest load. So they make black folk the willingness ass to pull the heavy loads on everything. That's why black folk always rush to identify with anything that's fabricated that looks like it could be identified with black folk. They identify with Jews on the religion. They identify with gender, they're transgenders, or with poor people, anything you name, black folk will rush to it. And because they're used to being used as a whore, and the other groups use it, and the other groups are the pimps. You know what a pimp is, don't you? Pimp is the one who takes advantage of the whore. So in this society, economically and politically, everybody pimps black folk. And black folk got used to it. In this country, in politics, as they say when I was running major campaigns for presidents and governors, is that there are two kinds of people in our society. There are screw-ers and screw-ees. And throughout the years, blacks have been the screw-ees and whites have been the screw-ers. And blacks and folks are so used to being screwed that now there's a love affair going on between blacks and whites over who's being screwed. Black folk are always on the bottom being screwed. So that's the point. And they're rushed, and they got used to it. They don't know the difference. That's why And when you ask them, so why don't you make these people do something for you? Dr. Anderson, I don't need anything because we got a love affair going. That's the civil rights movement wound up. And so it becomes a love affair. I mean, you being schooled all the time, you got used to being schooled on the bottom. You just say, hey, that's normal and natural. And that's why, and they said, when you start talking about money, the money goes to the pimp. The money doesn't go to the whore, it goes to the pimp. And that's why blacks don't get any money. That's why right now there's a major transferring of capital and wealth and resources out of the black community to anybody who's pimping black folk. That's why black folks spend 98% of every disposable dollar coming in their hands and goes right out. 95 of it goes straight to white businesses, but where you drive out of your community to change, major change like Burger King, McDonald's, major grocery chains, Giants, all the stores. We go straight to whites and dump our capital there. That's 95% goes out. Another 3% that stays into the community is now being dominated by immigrants that come into the country and replace the Jews. That'll be the Arabs, Hispanics, and the Asians that come into the black communities. I can go in Los Angeles right now. I can drive every 4 blocks. I'll find a Chinese restaurant, and it'll be right on the corner where they go in and they'll serve black folk as much as they can eat, and black folks are piling those restaurants, Chinese restaurants, and all through the black communities. You find Mexican town, Mexican restaurant, but you would never, ever find a black business set up in their neighborhoods. You can't go to Jewish town and find black businesses. You're not gonna be able to go into Chinatown and find black businesses. You're not gonna be able to go into Little Havana, Little Cuba, a Little Mexico, a Mexican town and find black businesses. You're not gonna go into Arab towns in Dearborn, Michigan and find black businesses. Only black folk. Oh, that's silly. To let the money be extracted out of their communities annually, their annual disposable capital and they're the 9th richest nation on earth. Black folk in America collectively, with their annual disposable income, makes them the 9th richest nation on earth. But yet they keep less than 2% of that money they get, almost $1 trillion in their own communities, and pass into their own people's hands. They deliver it all outside. Every damn payday they run and give it to somebody else. Then they get back and complain about why we are poor. You're poor because you keep giving everything away. Your money is supposed to bounce 8 to 12 times in black hands before it goes to a non-black hand. That's why Hispanic money would bounce 6 to 7 times before it leaves. White money stays in the white community. It bounces 8 to 12 times before it leaves the white community. Asian and Arab money bounces 13 and 14 times. Jewish money, behind all these major industries, they own like banking and the book companies and Hollywood. Their money bounces 18 times before it leaves their hands. They keep passing their money down among their own people. Every time a Jew starts a business, he'll call all his Jewish friends, hey, I'm starting a business. I want you to take 5 or 10%. They keep their money inside. Only black folk don't. Their money should be bouncing 8 to 12 times. And therefore, every dollar that a black person puts outside of another black hand, they flush $11 down the toilet. That's why they're poor. Down in Texas once, a lady asked me, said, Dr. Anderson, we just want to know, why is it we go out to the white community, see all those beautiful homes, and they got all that, they got golf courses, they got this, they got all that. Where do they get all that money from to be able to build all these nice homes and these nice things out in their neighborhood? Where do they get the money from? I say, simply, it's your money. You keep giving it to them. That's why you keep giving it to them. Your money doesn't bounce one time in your community. I said, as soon as your butt get paid, you run straight out of your neighborhood, run to somebody else's community. You don't build any businesses. You don't own any businesses. Your money doesn't bounce. And that's one of what. Now, let me jump off of this for a second. I talked in the previous conversations we had, I guess last Thursday and the Thursday before that, I told you about the 4 horses of the apocalypse were coming. I told you then that the 4 horses of the apocalypse have already come. They came during the Civil Rights Movement. Now, no black elected official is going to tell you that because he doesn't know. And anybody who sits down right now and listen, any black person sit down right now and listen to a black politician or a white politician or and half of these civil rights leaders, if you listen to them, then you got to be backwards in your thinking. Your IQ couldn't be over 7 for you to be listening to them and what they're saying. They don't know what they're talking about. None of them know what they're talking about. They're BSing you. Right now, the apocalypse came in the Civil Rights Movement. The white horse came and started off with Martin Luther King and all that stuff. Then you had the red horse coming, where again, white folks again started George Wallace, rest of them getting ready to set up how to mislead the structure to maintain the response in response to Martin Luther King. Then the Black Power movement came with the black horse, and that's what the Black Power and they wound up killing all the black leaders then. Now the last horse to come is going to be it's called a pale horse in the Bible. The pale horse is coming. You tell all your listeners right now. Tell them right now before I tell you this story. Tell them all to listen up and take notes. Tell them write this down.
Make sure if you got a pen, everybody, take a second to write this down. You are in class right now. We're not here to bullshit. We're here to learn. So make sure you take notes, everybody. If you have a pen and some paper around, go ahead, Dr.
Okay. Now the pale horse, the last one's coming. The pale horse is coming. It's coming next. Now we're talking about the virus right now. The virus is going to have the most negative impact on black folk. I've told black folk for 60 years that when white folks catch colds, black folk are going to catch pneumonia. That's why you have a disproportionate number of black folk being contracting the virus and dying from the virus. That's natural. That's normal. That's what they should if they had been listening, they'd have been aware of that. But the only way you could have helped yourself was to go on back and build black communities, like I've suggested, to build black communities where you could close them and keep a close watch over them, and you put the necessary ingredients you had in that community. You should have been in a position to put in your medical capabilities in there. Where are your black hospitals? You right now with Howard being taken over, you haven't got a damn black hospital in the United States now. You got 46 million black folk and no damn black hospital. And most of these beds can be taken up by non-blacks. 2, where are your clinics? You should have had community clinics in all these black neighborhoods. Where are those clinics? I can go to Hispanic community right now. I can drive 10, 11 blocks and see 2 or 3 damn clinics. Where are your black doctors? You let integration run your black doctors out. And now most of the doctors you go to are not even black. Go to any doctor right now, doctor's office or any kind of a medical related emergency. Most are going to either be Indians, East Indians, or they're going to be Arabs. Where are your black doctors? What happened to them? Don't you ever ask that question? When I was a kid, you had drug stores on about every 5 or 6. Where are the black drug stores? Name me 2 black drug stores you know right now. Where are the black drug stores? Where all the drug stores are white-owned drug stores, CVS, and whatever they call. Where are the black drug stores? Where are they? You don't have those. So what I'm saying is you don't have that. Then let's jump to the other side. Let's go to food stores. Where are the black food stores? We used to have grocery stores, black grocery stores. What happened to the black grocery stores? Black discount stores. You don't have any. You don't have any. Where are your black supermarkets? No black supermarkets. So what I'm saying is that you're still playing the lowest role because you keep listening to people in politics that don't know what the hell they're talking about. None of them. I have not seen one black person yet on TV or heard him on the radio say one damn thing that indicated to me he knew something about what he was talking about social economics. Not one. And half these people are talking about politics, expressing their views of what they conjured up while sitting on the commode in the bathroom. They don't know what they're talking about. You ask them, how many, show me, show me the things that you've done in tangible, measurable benefits for black folk if you're espousing all these different philosophies you got. Show me what you've ever done. Show me besides walking, saying you were in a march or you went on a TV show. Show me what you've done in tangible terms. So I just tell black folk, when I contact all these companies, I said, I'm gonna build businesses. That's why I built the Waterland Fisheries, the biggest fish operation in the United States, where I was raising over 1 million pounds of fish a year, of clean fish indoors in recirculating tanks strictly for black folk. When I built the biggest ice cream parlor in the United States at the front door of the Miami International Airport, called an airport ice cream shop, strictly for black, but the only one of its kind. Sold more ice cream than any white ice cream parlor in the entire United States. Just like I could sell more fish. I sold more fish than any white operation in the United States. And that's the same thing I said before. That learn how to produce and manufacture things, set up businesses. That's why I said all the business I set up was to help black folk. That's why when you see me putting up, when I put up a fire chief station on a black campus, to teach black folks and how to train blacks to be police chiefs in the fire departments. When I put a military and naval operation on a black campus, so blacks can graduate, get money, and graduate with commissions in the United States Navy and be commissioned officers. When I built the Hilton Head Seafood Co-op, in tangible terms, I built for black folks. So black folk in the Hilton Head had a co-op where they had a place where they could learn how to fish, and also to bring fish and dry fish and sell it. When I set up an annual stripping industry down in Louisiana for black folk. I set up what I call a Midwest distribution program for black folk. Now I put an underutilized species program, which had all these major black commercial fishing operations that saved the fish they were throwing overboard, that they caught in their nets, that they were not allowed to catch, to freeze them. Once they got frozen, then I had all these ships taking stuff to Africa, to countries in Africa, so black folk could get access to feed, buy food, fresh fish they couldn't get otherwise. Or I'm going down to Venezuela and Colombia, setting up operations for them to sell fish for black folk. I can go on and on. What I'm saying is that when you start listening to these people start talking about what they're going to do in economics, say, show me what you've done in the last 20 or 30 years to specifically benefit black folk. They can't show you something, you get up and walk away from the table. So I want to hear your philosophy. Show me your track record, what you've done for black folk, besides running your mouth. Now let me tell you about the pale horse right quick. My time is running out. The pale horse is this. The virus is not gonna end in May, as Trump was espousing. That this virus now that's killing all these people is gonna be around for at least another year to 18 months. So whatever condition you're under, gonna be very dire conditions. Things not gonna get better in another month or two. It's gonna get worse. You're heading into the worst time ever in this nation's history. This virus is not, when this virus, it might subside some, but in the meantime, you're gonna you move to the next level. The next level is this. Following this virus is gonna be water shortages. You're gonna have water shortages across this nation, starting with the West and coming across the United States. Water is gonna be a premium. Right now, bottled water would sell for about 4 times more expensive than a gallon of gasoline. I tried to get black folks to get into the bottled water business. Up in Eastern Maryland, I had control and ownership of I was authorized to raise 56 million. Did you hear what I said? 56 million gallons of free potable water every year. Some of the cleanest water in the United States. I was trying to put blacks into the bottled water business so they can have water. Water shortages are coming. And I tried to get blacks into the bottled water. Soon they said, Dr. Anderson, why should we go into bottled water? Water is free. No, it's not. And so now you got the next thing coming up, following that bottled water shortage, you're going to have food shortages. Food shortages are coming next, following that. That's because once you have a water shortage, you're going to have a food shortage. So in the time between now and the next 6 months, you're going to have major water shortages and food shortages for black folk. Black folk won't be able to get the food because they're not raising food anymore. I tried to organize all the black agricultural schools in the South. We started developing a consortium that would raise food and direct it straight into the black cities, where black folk could have open markets to buy fresh vegetables and fresh groceries. Right now, and I got a book, that's a 118-page book. I should be setting up grocery markets, open air markets for food, fresh foods coming from the South. Why the South? Because in the Black Belt, you got 4.5, almost 5 million acres of land controlled by black folk in the United States. They ain't doing a damn thing with it because nobody will show them how to do it. That's running all the way from Texas all the way to New Jersey. Black folk right now, these black historical colleges should be showing black folk how to raise food because food shortages are coming. I told them how I met with her. I called the presidents of 6 major black universities to meet with me down in Alabama. And said, I want you to go into business and start setting up a consortium of black universities, agricultural schools, and start raising food. We're gonna set up farmer markets. I want farmer markets set up in all these black cities, urban cities, so black folk can be able to buy fresh vegetables when this shortage comes. Now that was about 12, 13 years ago. Not one has set it up. Not one has set it up. Now you're gonna have food shortages coming, and the food's gonna go as food begin to increase, go up in prices. All of a sudden you're gonna find a bottle of orange juice might cost you $30 for a damn bottle of orange juice. Food's gonna become total shortage. And the last thing following the food shortages, you're gonna have civil disorders. Civil disorder will be the fourth thing is gonna come up. And which means those civil disorders are going to be some of them will be class disorders, where people will be fighting between the lower class and the upper class. The other going to be race-based clashes between whites and blacks. Why? Because you see, black folk are the weakest link in the society. And being the weakest link, whites are going to attack the weakest link. They might talk about the Jews, and they're going to bother Jews because Jews own and control too much power and resources. Jews have economic powers. I told you coming in this country. They settle on economics. I started practicing economics, ethnic economics, and so they might badmouth Jews. They're not going to touch them. I can only think of one major instance where that was back in about 1930s, where whites killed a Jewish person strictly over economics. They're going to nail black folks, so you're going to have racial clashes. That's the fourth thing is coming up. Now, what I'm going to say in conclusion of that. And following that, you might have wars between countries following that. That's the order. I just gave you the order. Now we're back here. Right now, we just with the virus. You can go through those steps all the way up to major wars. Now, what I'm going to probably propose with you next time we come on, maybe, if not next week, in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to show you some solutions on how black folks can protect themselves in case of water shortages and food shortages. I'm going to show you how to raise food real fast. And that's everything from urban farming. And I put all this stuff in the major programs, the books I have, how you raise food. And I'm going to show you a system where you can raise food 10 times faster than you can outside on a farm and on ground. That's why I had those recirculating tanks for raising fish. I could raise fish inside of a building 5 or 10 times faster than you could outside in the water. But I'm going to show them how to do all that in the coming weeks. And I'll come on your show and I'll explain it to them. Meantime, you tell them to be prepared to come on your program. And I'm going to talk about what's going to happen moving from this virus, or with the maybe possible wars, or you're going to have racial clashes in the country. But it's going to be over food and water. And I'm going to show them how to get prepared for that, for storing water and for storing food and raising food in very small areas, 5 to 10 times faster than you could outside, and be able to survive. Now that's the pale horse that's coming.
All right. Well, I hope you all will give a verbal confirmation that you heard what Dr. Anderson said. Type yes in the chat and type thank you in the chat for him for the fact that he's sharing things with you that you're not hearing anywhere else. I mean, there's really nowhere else, especially mainstream media, where you're really hearing solution-based understanding of what's really going on, where black people are put first. Put your hashtag B1 in the chat if you are in alignment with this. Also, I want to, before we let Dr. Anderson go, I would like to mention his website is powernomics.com. That's where all his books are. He has a library pack for $99 where you can get all 5 books in the DVD for your family. Introduce your children to Powernomics concepts. The website is powernomics.com. That's powernomics.com. 2 more quick announcements for you guys. One is tonight we have Black Movie Night. You guys know we're taking over the entertainment industry. And we're going to support Black filmmakers. We're going to continue to make movies and build an industry in our community. So if you'd like to join us for free to watch The Melanin Code by Marcus Small, it's a great movie about being on code and what Black folks are dealing with. Go to blackmovienight.net. You can register there. Somebody type that in the chat. It's blackmovienight.net. And one more thing I want to give you guys as a takeaway that you can give to your children. Dr. Anderson talked about the need for producers in the community. We have too many consumers. We don't have enough producers. Well, one of the things that we teach our kids in the Black Business School is we teach them to keep their poise. You're not going to find this in any textbook because we put this together specifically for our children. P-O-I-S-E. Somebody type poise in the chat. P-O-I-S-E. P-O-I-S-E. Poise stands for producer, owner, investor, saver, entrepreneur. Producer, owner, investor, saver, entrepreneur. So do me a favor, give me a verbal confirmation. Give me a yes in the chat. If you will commit right now, we're talking about solutions. If you will commit right now to making sure that you talk to your children today or this week or any young person that you have an influence over, it could be your nieces, nephews, or whatever, about being a producer when they grow up. Not just being a consumer, but what are you producing? What are you creating? How, what are you building? Right? So give me a yes in the chat if you agree, and make a promise to me right now that you're going to go home and talk to your children about that, because that's really important. We got to have action here, not just talk. All right. So thank you very much, Dr. Anderson. It was great to have you here. As always, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Right. Well, Dr. Watkins, the book that you just picked up, like Powernomics, the
Yeah.
National Plan of Power. See, if you start on in here, we're going to be talking about this in future events with you on your broadcast. Starting like about one page, about 170, about industries that Black folk have to be able to survive. And if you look in here, I named a whole bunch of industries that Black folk should have been into. It should be vertically ordered. I could run through them, everything from the leather industry to bottled water. On page 175 is bottled water industries, to hydroponic farming, A175, to inner city farmer markets, which I just mentioned to you, vertically integrated bottled water businesses, which I mentioned to Black folk, they didn't do it, vertically integrated sports industries, all those kind of things. And but I'm going to give you some very specific things on how to grow vegetables and stuff like that. How to grow very vegetable, all kind of fruits and vegetables, and you can do them in your basement, on your back porch, so you can be able to survive. But they're going to have to be able to listen to your program to pick up on some of this stuff, and we're going to start doing this in the next 2 or 3 weeks. The only hesitation I have is that I hate to tell you which one of these things, how to spend your money and go buy some of the equipment that you're going to need, because I don't want to be promoting it, but I'll have to think about how to do that, because I hate to tell people how to spend their money. But you're going to have to do something. I can tell you how to do it, and I'll even set you up with the way to do it. So within a matter of weeks, you'll be able to live off what you're raising on your back porch or in your basement. But let me think about how to do that, because I don't want Blacks to say, Dr. Anderson told me if I do this, I'll have food. I know our people are tricky. You tell them something, do something, and all of a sudden it doesn't go completely right. But I'm going to show them ways of business that they can get into, things they can do to be able to survive and prosper, because right now things are going to get worse, because we're going into the last horse, which is the pale horse. And the pale horse is pestilence. Look in the Bible, you start talking about pestilence. Pestilence means diseases and things that are being passed on and brought negative impacts on your people. That's everything from fire, storm, wind, rain, tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, pestilence, diseases, famine. They're going to have a lot of starving Black people, and Black people at the bottom. Maybe more Black people are going to starve left than whites, because Black folk don't have the money, the income. You start talking about unemployment. They're not talking about Black folk. I told you that before. They start talking about unemployment. Black folk are not suffering that much from unemployment. They're suffering from joblessness. There's a difference between, you heard me talk to you about that. It's a major difference between unemployment and joblessness. Whites suffer from unemployment. Blacks suffer from joblessness. We don't have those businesses that we should have had in our communities, because we don't have communities. And the Jews had the community, was used to be our primary source. Now, when they left out, pulled up in the 1960s, it's now filled with Arabs, Asians, and Hispanics that are providing their rotating minorities that are now profiteering off of Black money every year, while we starve to death, suffer acute deprivation, and our money is being displaced to other people's neighborhoods and other people's communities.
All right, all right. Well, everybody, please give Dr. Anderson a digital thank you, a digital round of applause. Let him know how much you appreciate him. And once again, the URL for his site is powernomics.com. Make sure you visit powernomics.com. Also, on May 6th, the Investing Masterclass starts. So today is the last day to get 48% off the Investment Masterclass. If you'd like to join us, you can go to drboycemasterclass.com. We cover 6 weeks of investing techniques, where when you're done, you're going to be a really good investor. You're going to know a lot more than most college graduates will ever know. So feel free to go to drboycemasterclass.com to get the discount. And also powernomics.com is Dr. Anderson's books. Yes, sir.
Yeah, one more thing. If I contact you after the show is over and ask you, any Blacks got annual disposable capital, they'd like to invest in some of the things I'm asking about, how Black folk can get control of the water and food in the country, they might need something like $150,000 from some major source. And I might ask you that to be able to help a person get these things together for Black folk in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So if you know somebody got that kind of annual disposable income, let me know. And I might need if one person can do it, if an athlete or entertainer can can be an investor. I'll show them how to have the equipment stuff to produce, like I was raising the fish and stuff. And I have farmers, I can do all this stuff, raising a farm to feed half of these damn black folk.
All right. Well, you know, I know some people. So I'll talk to them and I'll bring it up and see what they think. I think Jay Morrison has got the Tulsa Fund. He's got millions of dollars sitting in that fund. So maybe.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He raised, I think, about 8.5 million, something like that. So maybe that's some stuff that his investors.
Yeah. If I find one or two black folks that got some disposable income that don't mind being black and would help invest, we're not asking them to give anything up, give us things free to invest and having some ownership where they can get a big return off all their money and help these blacks be prepared to survive. If you call me, if I try to call you and you tell me who they are, and I'll try to hook them up and get them involved. Because I'm gonna set up some systems across this country to save black folk as best I can by myself. That's why it's important for them to read this book, Powernomics, to give them on the own trade what we're gonna be, some of the things we're gonna be doing in this country. Okay, I'm gonna go by the library, get the library pack off of Powernomics, powernomics.com, get that library pack, because you and I are gonna be talking about all this stuff in the next coming weeks.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Anderson. I appreciate it. It's always good to see you. And thank you all for hanging out with us and listening. And do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button before you go. And again, his website is powernomics.com. And tonight is blackmovienight.net. So we are building that industry. We're reaching hundreds of thousands of people with our movies already. And so we're making progress. We're making a lot of progress. So let's just keep it going. Let's keep going. So take care, everybody. Have a good night, and we'll see you soon. Thanks a lot, Dr. Anderson.
Thank you, Doc.
All right. Bye-bye now.
All right. Bye-bye now.
Here we are, clan the isms, cataclysm great. Our people out here struggling, trying to make it in this state. Everybody out here doing it, but we the ones who late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money and the power, never be fake. Stick to code, side for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same empire back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr. Boy's TV.